wiggle here. I was testing my hills and valleys this morning. I put a garden hose in there to see how everything's flowing. I don't want to wait on rain, so I'm speeding it up by just running a hose. So far everything looks pretty good. The water's just now hitting this big pond down here. So this is the most important part, so I can see when this depression fills up, is it going to spill over right where that hoe is about the same time it's going to spill over here where this hoe is. If it does, that would be great. And I can control it with that, 18-inch strip, 2-foot strip of dirt. I can add some red clay in there and compact it to kind of time it, to time when the water is going to flow over either way. I obviously want more water going here to help these beds, which are pretty dry, rather than just shooting the water down the hill. Right about where that comfrey starts, I need to put in a low water dam to hold that water back up this hill, then have it spill over that dam, because this part just is not holding water long enough. It's just kind of shooting right through. So this is a bit of a dry patch where all this hay is. So if I want to grow something that's reliant on moisture like most of my annuals, I'm going to have to slow that water down because we're still up on this dry, rocky, gravelly ridge. So I do want the water going down here, and I might, about where that piece of aluminum is, I might put in yet another little low water dam. I'll put in as many as I need to hold the water back to water these mounds a little better. But we're going to be changing the nature of this upper part of the garden by the way we're handling this water. It's definitely going to improve. Just this alone, if we infiltrate water into this depression, it's going to start seeping into this mound, and it's going to start working its way down this way. So this whole mound will benefit, and eventually it can wick underneath the path and back up into the bed, depending on how much water we can hold back, how much rain we get. We're not doing terribly here, because you can see this clover. It's fairly lush, so we're doing all right considering it's top of a hill. All of what little I had already done, you can see where the clover is. Just the nature of, I had just cow manure mix just piled up in here, and it had gone to just weediness, but still we were holding back enough moisture to kind of get rid of the broom's edge just on this side of that little ridge. You can see over there, that's lower, but it's not as nice as this. So all of this side from the garden, you can see the clover down under that tree. That's where that drainage ditch drains. So that part is explained. You can see the reediness in the middle there. That was all happening on its own, but all this stuff further up the hill is a result of this garden and these mounds and these swales, or hills and valleys. So this bed doesn't need a whole lot of tuning, because this is going to get filled with chips today. Although these little valleys will get filled with chips. I just wanted to make sure. Now I kind of see a problem here where these tools are. I'm going to put that wheelbarrow full of dirt right there, just to help it round this corner a bit. I'm a little concerned it might try to push over. That's a little bit low right there. But it does have a pretty good downhill run. See that narrowness? Whenever you see narrow on the water flow, that's erosion, but you also know it's moving downhill pretty fast, more like rapids. When you see the pools, you know that it's slowing down. It's wide and slow. So you can see my horseshoe shapes here. Lower part of the horseshoe is filling up, and the downhill side. Then when it gets about halfway, it breaks into a rapid. And then kind of the same thing there. That horseshoe will actually fill up quite a bit. Once that ditch fills with water, it will back up. That part of the horseshoe is going to be well watered. So the downhill part is always going to get better water than the uphill. And I know that's obvious. You can see it flowing in faster than it's flowing out. So it's soaking in just that. Now what I did want to show you is I did have the hose up here earlier, walking through the mud. And when I was filling it, the water was somewhat flowing back down into the ditch. But that's okay. When that rainwater hits that ditch, I don't want it immediately flowing into this garden. I want to settle out the heavy metals and stuff from the road lead and cadmium and whatever's from the exhaust of cars. I don't want that stuff just necessarily flowing right in my garden. And even like a lot of the things that are problems in the environment, PCBs and all that. Not that I'm going to have those here, but the idea is that these heavy things that settle in and stay put, rather have them up here at the top of the garden. So this is a little bit of a catch, just for heavier sediments and some of the stuff I don't want in the garden. And then it'll be caught up here in the organic. This is a highly active zone biologically, just because it's been getting wet and dry for so many years. You can see how lush it is along the ditches and the roads, just about anywhere you go. Biologically active, it's going to eat some of that organic stuff that we don't want. And then the heavy metals, which don't go away, hopefully will settle more in here. I don't mind having some heavy metals, but they need to be worked on by plants, like, hydrolyzed. The plant, once a plant works on lead, it's lead hydroxide, for instance. Now that is something that's actually good for your garden. Not bad for you, but it's just bare heavy metals are bad. So I'm hopefully filtering out some of that stuff right here. You'll catch that, then it'll begin to run over. And I've checked this, it all runs just fine. After going through this, I know that we're in good shape as far as structure. I got it just about right, just guessing at it. Obviously, when it rains, and that fills up another foot higher than it, that's gonna be a good amount of water flowing back over this. This part here is just a little, maybe 6 inches lower than that hill there, that little dam. So it's gonna run through this before it washes out that dam. If it does wash out the dam, I'm not so worried about it. It's just gonna go down the hill like it always has. The main thing is I wanna make sure my mounds stay intact. That's why I'm gonna pack wood chips in here. The flow will basically remain the same. It'll just be slower and more filtered as it runs through these wood chips. And my wood chips will float away, but I'm going to hopefully be able to hold them back. I may put some little piece of cattle panel or something in there to just hold them back, just keep all my chips from floating away. At least they'll just stay in the same section when they float down. So this is how I do my irrigation and my raised beds. The wood chips will kind of hold everything in place. You could use hay. I'm sure there's other things you can use, but I primarily use wood chips and hay when I'm doing this. When I get this depression down there by the wheelbarrow full, I'll take a little more video and let you see that. I'm going to hit just a little bit of this with the hoe, just because it's soft, easy to get to right now. Just shape it just a little bit more. Just really not that important, but I'm going to just do it because it's easy right now. And underneath these wood chips, I did get my Mammoth sunflowers in last night. Planted them like six inches on center. Then I put various kinds of cucumbers in between. So I'm going to use the Mammoth sunflowers, which get 8-10 feet more, hopefully, tall. I'm a little late in the season, but however tall they are, but I'm going to use those as a trellis for my various cucumbers. And if I have problems, I can put a stake in, run a rope to kind of just help those sunflowers stay standing. Or I could just go from panel to panel with a rope. And then use that rope and then the sunflowers as the trellis. I did put a lot of metal poles up and all that, and kind of ugly and kind of a pain. So I'm going to try this natural trellis. I'm going to try the same trellis, sunflowers for the tomatoes. We'll be planting on that one slope right there. And then all the way down the middle today, I'm putting in whatever tomatoes I have. Late in the season, but we'll be harvesting into October, I'm sure. So I'll keep you updated. I'm going to work this dirt just a little bit and start filling this in with wood chips, and it will totally transform the way this thing looks. Oh, and I also put sweet potatoes in on these 4 mounds here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm pretty much expecting these sweet potatoes to be spilling out into the road, into the driveway, out into the pasture. I'm hoping that my ground cover is just sweet potatoes, and that will help me fight off the weeds and all that. Even though we shouldn't have many weeds with all these wood chips. But that's a very light coating of wood chips on there just to cover the bare soil. And those big seeds, the sunflowers and the cucumbers and then the sweet potatoes, that should all just push right through that little layer of mulch. Whereas the weeds might have a little more trouble. And as those things grow up, I will put more chips in here to really choke out the weeds. I'm also going to put edible gourds along the fence. The sweet potatoes will tend to go through, crawl through. They don't climb so well. They climb a little. But these edible gourd vines, those suckers grow like crazy, and they'll love this high and dry spot. So hopefully this whole fence will be covered with edible gourds. Hopefully we'd have a good season, even though we're getting a little bit late. So I'll fill you in a little later. Thanks for watching. All right, I'm back. I'm out here, bare feet, rolled up my pants, long pants I wear to keep the bugs off me. I want to have a little quick word about sandcastle, mud puddles, and all that. Don't yell at your kids for playing in a mud puddle. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Part of what we do as humans. One of the most important things we can do as humans is play in a mud puddle. Gets us grounded, it's good for our health, and it's just something instinctive that if you allow for it, you will do it and enjoy it. Let those kids be little humans, little creative humans that they're made to be. Let them get out there and play with water, play with dirt. Let them make little water dams. That one kind of happened on its own. Playing sandcastles here. So the trick is to hold back your water and not make ponds. If you have a pond, it needs to last a day or two. That's it. If it lasts longer than that, you got a problem. You're going to grow mosquitoes and frogs and all that, and that's what you're after. But if you're doing horticulture, I mean, I know you do rice. I'm just talking most of your normal perennials, annuals. You don't necessarily want them grown in a pond, but you do want them to have the moisture they need. So the trick is to hold back the water, but not too much. And you have to be careful when you hold back water. This is all very loose. This is all just flat ground, basically flat ground, subsoil, and I put these loose piles of dirt on here. You do the same thing. You can wash these suckers out and lose everything. You have to make sure that your water keeps moving. If you hold back too much water, you're going to have a problem. So hold it back, but keep it moving as well, if that makes sense. You're always going to have some erosion that you're dealing with. Erosion is not what you want, but in a less than ideal world, you have just whatever slope you have to deal with, you deal with it. So I'm holding back water here, then it's running quickly down there. The thing about all of this is when that ditch fills up, everything slows down. It's only running rapidly when there's not much water. This will all slow down soon enough. But when it slows down, I don't want it pushing over my low spot. I don't want it pushing over there. But I got this release here, so the water should be washing out pretty quickly. Now, I came through here with my hoe and I pushed the clay up on the sides best I could and kind of stepped on it a little bit, just compacted it. Clay is really good for holding back moisture when you compact it. So this is going to kind of happen on its own, because if I walk in that little horseshoe right there, it's full of silt already. All the silt just comes down and stops from whatever it's washed out. It'll look like that. You see that silt? You have silt here. When if this wasn't here, this little hose, this would be a silty spot. And that's fine. All of this will level out a little bit over time. These mounds are going to sink. The wood chips that I put in are going to sink. This whole valley is going to sink a little bit. So get out, get your feet wet, get some mud on you, grow some crops, keep yourself alive, grow some real food. This is how you do it. Hills and valleys. I don't care. They're trying to sell you permaculture design courses and all that. Just get out and play in the mud. Get out and play in the sand. Sand's a lot harder, of course, but just get out and play in the mud, have fun, be a kid, and be a grown-up and grow real food for your health. This is the real medicine. Food grown in natural places without a lot of chemicals, any chemicals, no chemicals except what you get that you can't control. Natural fertilizer, which is livestock, cows, horses, goats, geese, whatever you got. Cows are the best, by far. And if you can't get a cow, get some cow manure, and you'll have nice black dirt. So anyway, it's not hard. It's work, but intellectually it's not very hard. And you just, if you fail, you just fix it and move on. This came out pretty well. I'm happy with it. I think we'll be fine. I don't think we're going to lose any beds, even though they're super soft. I think we'll be fine, especially when I get the wood chips in there. It kind of just slows everything down. The water's still going to move through the wood chips basically exactly the same as it's moving here. So there's nowhere that the water can just dam up and push my mounds. This is going to be a lot of water in here, so I will have to make sure to compact my little raceways, my little dams, my little release valves, whatever you want to call them. You got to compact those so they don't erode away. If it erodes away, then you're going to have water leaving more quickly. But even if it washes out and I lose all my water, it's still going to stay in my garden. All my sediment will stay in the garden. It's not going to, it's got to go all the way down there to get out. So I'm probably not going to lose it, but I would prefer to keep it up here as high as I can and use it up here. That's one principle. Use your water high up on the elevation, as high as you can. Get use out of it and use it as many times as you can. Don't let the water run off, go down to your nearest river, which, by the way, that's where your mounds will be going if you don't do them right. You're going to have all your fertility in the nearest river. Like every time it rains, you see everybody else's fertility, or subsoil these days, in the river. So hold back your water, hold back your fertility, and it will build. This thing will build fertility over time completely passively. I don't have to do anything but wait. You put plants in there, they drop the litter, that's going to help it. But we'll fix the soil, build some soil. This is the way to do it. And these valleys that are full of nothing but worthless subsoil, pile these wood chips up. You're walking on your compost bed, it's composting. A year or two, dig it up and put it back up on the mounds. You'll have all of this fertility. Since everything's sinking, you're just going to keep building it back up. And you'll find that perfect spot where everything is happy, elevation, you're not getting any erosion. You're holding back all your fertility, holding back all your water like a greedy water mongering. Don't let your water go down the road. Keep your water, keep your fertility. This is a young food forest, and I just let it speak for itself. Nothing more. That, all of that down there is basically this. So get out there and get some land, do some gardening, please, for your health, for your happiness, for your longevity, so you don't rely on the fragile food system. Get out, grow yourself some food. Enjoy yourself. Get out, get some fresh air and some sunshine. Get grounded in all ways. This is what we were made to do. This is important work. Help me out. Join in. Let's fix this land. Let's grow some soil. Let's build families. Let's build life. Let's build communities based on what's real. Anyway, y'all have a good day. So I'm working on this upper ditch, which is where this spillway where my water is going to come out and move on down to the rest of the garden. Using the power of erosion to help me with this rock hard clay, very gravelly subsoil. Here's my ditch back here. And here's how I use my hose. When it gets soft, and all this silt is making it down, its way down to the deeper part. So it's helping level off this whole area. So I'm using erosion as a good thing here. There's my lower spillway, and we are getting close. 3-4 inches. That wheelbarrow's at. And to about 4 to 5, maybe 7 inches, 6 to 7 inches here. And up there is my. So yeah, maybe I didn't stress this enough. Get out and play in the mud with your kids. Build a garden. Might have some fun. Definitely do you some good to get grounded. You can see how gravelly our subsoil is here. And it is almost like cement. It's just, when it gets hard in that clay, it's tough. So we're getting close. You can see my high spot is way up there now, and that will be not too bad to deal with. My water just doesn't have anywhere to go. Once I work up there a little more, it'll be fine. Because that water will start moving. It's going to fill up. Spill over, spill over, spill over, spill over, all the way down. Just spill over nice and slow, because it's, 6 feet wide, and it's pretty much level. If I have a low spot, I'll fill it in. If I have a high spot, I'll knock it down. And those beds will get really watered when we get a rain, and it'll soak all my water into this mound. That'll be a beautiful thing. So we're getting close here. Still got some water flowing, 3 or 4 inches. I'm going to keep washing this gravel out just a little bit more. I soften it up, then I take a hoe to it, soften it up. But we're getting close. I'll fill that in over there if I have to. I just want to find out that this is actually spilling a little bit before. More water is going to be going uphill, so to speak, than downhill, so to speak. I'll let you know when we get it all the way there. Okay, ditch is about full. We're about where we need to be. See that sediment, floating sediment, wood chips and just what have you. It's just starting to move. downhill towards the rest of the garden. The good news is my sill there did not wash out. So when we get a lot of rain, this should be where my water is going. It should go just like this, start spilling over those beds. And if we get too much rain, then it's going to wash over that sill. And I'm going to put some bricks down or papers so that doesn't wash out so easily. And I'm going to compact it with clay. I do expect that it will spill over during heavy rain, and that's okay. I want it to, but I'd rather have the water uphill, because anything we can hold up here, even if this gets completely full and soaks in, it's still going to water most of that over there downhill. Down by the low tunnels there, I might put in a little dam there to hold the water up here on this portion, and then when this gets full, it'll start spilling over there. That would be ideal. That way I know this part up here has held every bit of water, and it's just starting to spill over, but not quite. I don't want it to spill over there, I want it to spill over here. So there'll be no water actually running through this part of the garden. It'll all just be a giant pond. It'll stop, start flowing here. That would be ideal. We'll see if we can get that. But that would be the idea. That would be what I would be shooting for. And as you can see, this is full, and these are not even holding anything. So I'll probably put a little water dam there, a little water dam there, there. At the end of each of these, whatever I need to do to hold the water back just a little bit more, because it's just too much slope from there to here. But my input is taken care of up there at the top by the road, the ditch on the road. This is my output into this. So we're in pretty good shape. I think it was a success. These up here are not holding enough water. As you can see, the water is going to run through too quickly, and I don't want that. This is not going to cause it to hold water because it's almost overflowing now. So this is about as much water as this part will ever have, meaning that's as much uphill water as we're going to have. That's right there where that water stops. That's the perfect place for the low water dam, holding it uphill just a bit. And this subsoil is not going to erode very easily. It's pretty tough. But perhaps the chips will just do enough of the work. We can just try putting some chips in. Hard to say. I'll probably just put a little bit of dirt in each one of these aisles and then just fill it in with chips. Just a little bit right at the curve of the U. You can see where the narrow spots are where the water's running too fast. So need to hold it back just a little bit more. So I'll show you a picture when it's all said and done. But my sediment is floating downhill now. So we're where we need to be. Just where we need to be. Wiggle culture here. It's a little bit windy. I'm going to try to keep the mic out of the wind. Well, I got it done. There's what it looks like. You can basically see the mounds and the valleys, hills and valleys. There's not much wood chips on the top of the hills so the seeds can poke through. That's what she looks like. I'll probably put spent hay along excuse me, the edges to kind of choke back the grass from creeping in. It's in the early afternoon. We've got up into the lower 90s, so I'm taking a break. Along this mound to the right, I'm going to put tomatoes and basil. Between the spillways, here's one spillway here. There's one spillway where those wheelbarrows are. So all this in here is going to be tomatoes and basil, and on the left will be peppers, a row of peppers. Everything else is seeds that are in the ground. It's mostly sunflowers, cucumbers, sweet potatoes. And I put a double row of sunflowers here and cucumbers, so the cucumbers will be growing behind, and the tomatoes to the right will be the cucumbers. To the left will be the sunflowers that I use to trellis the tomatoes. And that keyhole right there, I'll get through to the back side. There'll be another keyhole there. I left this uncovered here, so when we do get some rain, hopefully this weekend they're saying we'll get some rain, I'll be able to watch the water coming out of this mulch and see how that spillway's doing and see how this spillway's doing. I kind of left it just so I can make any adjustments I need to without having to move a bunch of stuff out of the way. So that bed will remain unplanted for a little bit, but I'll catch up with that after some rain. So when it cools off a bit, I'm going to start putting in my tomatoes and in my sunflowers. So double roll of sunflowers on top of that mound, and on this side I'll put the tomatoes where I can reach them from the keyhole beds. And if I have any basil left, I'll try to work it in up there, but I think most of my basil needs to be down here where the water is going to be. Basil likes to be moist It can stand the heat and it can get dry, but then it likes to be moist. At least in my experience. If it's too dry, it's just not going to do well. It's not quite as tough as the tomatoes. Probably because it's not as deeply rooted. But that's another story. I will update you this evening when it cools off and I get some plants in and get them watered. One last view of it. Looks a little different than when I started.